There are many boosters in Helldivers 2, but they aren't all equally as useful. You'll find some boosters active for the whole game, and other boosters benefits that only appear at the end. You may be wondering which boosters are the best, and which ones to stay away from because believe it or not, there is a booster in the game that can even hinder your team's performance. Can you guess which one? Throughout this video, I will explain what these boosters do best and go through them in order of when they came out. Then, I will give them a score on the tier list from S tier down to D, because giving a booster an F would mean it's completely useless. I also want to say before this video starts, please remember this is a personal opinion of mine that will unlikely fit with your point of view on the game, but I wouldn't mind hearing what you think in the comments below. So, let's get on with the video. Hellpod Space Optimization is the first booster in the default warband and is generally going to be the first one you purchase. This booster costs 15 medals and allows divers to drop into battle, and after respawns, fully restocked on ammo, grenades, and stims, whereas the default is about half the max amount. There's not much to talk about with this one, but I give it an S tier for squads because this allows all players to fight for longer before needing a resupply. This booster can easily be looked over for solos because you do not need to share the resupply with others. The Vitality Enhancement booster can be found on the next page in the default warband for 20 medals. The description of this booster doesn't say much other than it allows all divers to resist injury, which doesn't give a clear understanding of what this booster does. What counts as an injury? What I initially thought it meant was prevent limb injury, but it is not. This booster gives your limbs more health, which makes you have more health, to put it simply. I would rate this booster an S tier still, as more health points means a better chance for survival and give a more tankier feel to players. This booster is great for solo as well. The UAV Recon booster can be found in the default warband for 40 medals. This booster increases your effective radar distance from a radius of about 75 meters to 110 meters. With my playstyle, I never really find myself using the minimap to its fullest capability unless I am making decisions tactically, whether that'll be a calculated stratagem throw or playing stealthily. Speaking of stealth, this booster pairs well with the Scout Armor passive, as it boosts ping radar distance too. I would give this booster a B tier. Not bad, but there are better ones. Now here is a booster I can stand behind, the Stamina Enhancer. This booster costs 75 medals and can be found in the default warband. This booster is exactly as it sounds. It buffs your stamina depletion and regeneration rate, the effects being most on light armor by about 25 to 30%. This was my default booster for a long time. If no one picked it, I would easily take it because movement buffs go a long way in survival horde clearing games. This booster is especially helpful when fighting against Terminids because you are always running from crowds of enemies. I give this booster an S tier for sure. The Muscle Enhancement booster is overall a good booster. It's not my top pick, but it certainly beats others. This booster is very niche when it comes to using it. It allows divers to traverse difficult terrain more easily, meaning obstacles such as foliage, mud, sand, and snowstorms. Slowing effects are not as severe. The only time you'll catch me bringing this booster is when I know I will be up against these obstacles frequently, such as deserted or snowy planets with harsh weather conditions. I would rate this booster an A tier because even though it can be niche, it solves a problem that all of us have been caught in before. I think a cool buff to this booster would be to allow Helldivers to climb rocks and cliffs more easily as well. The Increased Reinforcement Budget booster has quite the requirements before you can start using it. It can be found on the last page of the default warband for 150 medals and sounds like it would be a really good booster. I can tell you, it's not. I think this booster is too expensive for what it actually is. With a price of 150, there are other things I'd rather spend my hard-earned medals on. If I recall correctly, this is one of the last purchases I've made in any warband. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is an F tier booster because it can still be useful. This booster gives an extra life per Helldiver, so you can have an extra 4 in a game with a full squad. When playing with randoms and someone brings this booster, I am not mad. I would rate this booster a B tier because you may not even need these extra lives, and it could have been replaced with something better, but no biggie. The Flexible Reinforcement Budget booster can be found in the Steel's Veteran Warband. Our first premium war bond. It costs 75 medals, and I think this booster is pretty bad. This booster shortens the timer on reinforcements after you have used your set amount. The default timer is 2 minutes and can be shortened to 1 minute and 40 seconds. This is a 16.6% reduction in time, and that is not worth it to me to bring along. If you find yourself constantly in this threshold of respawn timers, you have bigger problems. This booster should have been combined with the other respawn booster, as it will always be overlooked. Plus, the war bond not being free, this booster relatively sucks. I would give it a C tier still because it still has a scenario where it technically could be useful. Localization confusion can be found in the cutting edge warbond for 18 medals, and this booster I had some trouble testing and giving a score. The official description of this booster says, increases the time between enemy encounters, which is confusing. You encounter enemies in multiple different ways in Helldivers 2, through bug breaches and dropships, patrols, and enemies just sitting at objectives waiting for a player. From playing with this booster for a while, I would describe it as an overall calmness increase when playing in higher difficulties. With lower difficulties, this booster does next to nothing. I cannot test the time between bug breaches easily, but looking it up, people say it adds an extra 30 seconds to bug breach and bot drop timers, going from 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 3 minutes roughly, which is again a 16.6% increase in time. I would rate it a B on the tier list because it is useful for those who want a quote-unquote easier mission with higher difficulties. The Expert Extraction Pilot Booster can be found in the Democratic Detonation Warbond and can be purchased for 55 medals. After a while, when the freshness of this booster came out, I don't think I ever saw this booster brought to a mission again. Not to say it completely sucks, but you only get to see the effects of this booster at the end of a mission. These effects not even being that significant. This booster reduces the time to call in extraction by 15%, which would shorten the default timer from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 40 seconds, and the operation modified extended timer from 3 minutes to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. There's not much to talk about. This one is pretty bad compared to what other boosters can and do achieve. I would rate this C tier because it is a pretty forgettable booster. Half the missions you play, this booster doesn't even work on because the extraction is already instant. The Motivational Shocks booster can be found in the Polar Patriots Warbond and can be purchased for 15 medals. This booster supposedly allows all Helldivers to recover faster after being slowed by attacks, such as acid, but the difference is so minimal that people say they could not even notice it regularly. This booster has so much potential as I hate being stun locked by multiple enemies applying their slow attacks to me. Unfortunately, this booster does not solve the problem or noticeably even help. The stuns included do not mitigate area effects such as EMS strikes, however, a change to that would make it a good booster if it did. I would rate this booster a D tier for don't bother. The Experimental Infusion booster can be found in the Viper Commandos Warbond and can be purchased for 80 medals. Here we go, my new favorite booster in the entire game currently. This booster replaces your healing stims with much better ones by making them now give a speed boost to running, and damage resistance as well. This booster also makes the stim screen yellow instead of blue and kind of warps the edges, but it doesn't affect visibility much at all. I love these new stims. Like before, movement is crazy good in this game, and a speed boost will pass the others on my list. The damage resistance part isn't too noticeable with light armor, but that's not the main thing for me anyway. However, somehow I survived a landmine in the past with the effects of this booster and medium armor. Could have been a fluke though. This booster pairs well with light medic armor, making you a speed demon of the land. I give this booster an easy S tier for sure, and perhaps the best booster in the game in my opinion. Here we go, certainly my least favorite booster in the game, Firebomb Hell Pods. The previous video on my channel has gone over to see if I could make this booster any good and had very little luck doing so. You can find this booster in the Freedom's Flame Warbond for 60 medals, and I would not recommend this booster to my worst enemies. This booster applies a firebomb effect to all regular Hell Pods in a game. The fire explosion from these pods can easily team kill players and break other turrets if placed closely. Imagine this scenario for a moment. You are playing with fills and someone joins late and decides to use this booster. You are already in the game and have thrown a resupply for you and your teammates. Then suddenly, this flaming amalgamation of a booster burns everything around it to a crisp, losing team lives for nothing in return. This booster is the worst in the game, and I'm giving it the only F tier because it hinders the team so much. Bringing no booster would be better. Screw giving this booster a scenario where it could be useful. The benefits of this booster do minuscule damage to the enemies anyway, so you're not missing out on that part. The fire effect could not even kill a warrior, one of the lightest enemies in the game. The Dead Sprint booster is the newest in the game currently. It can be found in the Truth Enforcer's Warbond and purchased for 35 medals. I must say, this Warbond has the coolest gear and cosmetics right now, something straight out of Star Wars. The booster is not half bad as well, compared to some of the most recent ones. Dead Sprint, as it implies, lets you keep sprinting after your stamina bar has completely depleted, at the cost of health, just for when you need a little more gas in the tank to outrun the enemy. Pretty good idea to spend a few health points running instead of lots fighting, if your goal is to survive. Luckily, you cannot sprint to death, as this may have been a turnoff for this booster. While sprinting without stam, the health equivalent gives you more than a second stamina bar, meaning you can run twice as far. This also makes your sims way more efficient for sprinting because you can double dip, refreshing health and stamina. I would rate this an A tier booster, not as high as the stamina enhancement one, because of the cost you have to make. But if you don't mind spending some stims to run the extra mile, this one is pretty good. And there we have it, every booster up to the Truth Enforcer's Warbond, all in one tier list. What a journey of what this game has started as and where it is now. This is the final look of what I've rated these boosters. If you like my content or are a returning viewer, subscribe. Thanks for watching.